What happens to a man so good that death itself cannot touch him? This is not a fairy tale. This is not a legend made up around a campfire. This is one of the oldest questions buried deep inside the pages of Scripture. And the answer might change the way you understand everything about heaven, angels, and the human soul. Genesis 5:24 gives us one of the shortest and most mysterious verses in the entire Bible. It says Enoch walked with God, and then he was not, because God took him. That is it. No long goodbye, no sickness, no grave. Just a man who walked so closely with God that one day he simply vanished from the earth. Most people assume Enoch is a minor character in the Bible. He shows up in a genealogy list between Jared and Methuselah, and most readers skip right past him. But ancient Jewish mystics did not skip past Enoch, and they became obsessed with him. They asked the question nobody else dared to ask. Where did Enoch go? And what did he become after God took him? The answer they found is one of the most extraordinary claims in all of religious history. They said Enoch did not just go to heaven. They said he was transformed, changed, reshaped from the inside out. They said God took this mortal man and turned him into the mightiest angel in all of creation. His new name was Metatron, and his story opens a door into a hidden world that most people never even knew existed. In this journey, we will move through three major stages together. First, we will trace the ancient path of Enoch from the pages of Genesis into the secret writings of Jewish mysticism. Then, we will explore the vast and terrifying structure of heaven itself, with its courts, its thrones, its armies of angels, and its layers of fire and glory. And finally, we will ask the question that matters most. What does all of this mean for you right now in your own life? Because the mystics believed that what happened to Enoch was not just history. It was a map, a guide, a promise that the same kind of transformation is available to every human soul willing to walk closely enough with God. And once we understand this first layer, the real story begins. Enoch appears in the book of Genesis as the seventh generation from Adam. That detail matters more than most people realize. In ancient Hebrew thought, the number 7 represents completion and holiness. Enoch was not placed seventh by accident. The writers of Genesis were telling you something. This man held a special position in the story of humanity, and he was marked from the very beginning. His father was Jared. His son was Methuselah, the oldest man who ever lived. But Enoch himself lived only 365 years. In a time when men lived for centuries, Enoch's life was cut short. Or was it? The text does not say Enoch died, it says God took him. That phrase in Hebrew carries a weight that English cannot fully capture. It suggests a deliberate act by God, a removal, a snatching away, something active and intentional. The ancient rabbis noticed this immediately. They compared Enoch to Elijah, the only other figure in the Hebrew Bible who was taken by God without dying. But Elijah went up in a chariot of fire with witnesses watching. Enoch's departure was quieter, more mysterious, and that mystery became the seed of an entire tradition. The earliest writings about Enoch outside the Bible come from a period roughly 200 years before Jesus was born. These are the texts we now call First Enoch, or the Book of the Watchers. In these writings, Enoch is no longer just a righteous man in a genealogy. He is a prophet, a scribe, a man chosen by God to record the secrets of heaven and carry warnings to fallen angels. First, Enoch describes a world where angels called watchers came down from heaven, took human wives, and produced giants known as the Nephilim. Genesis 6:4 hints at this same story. Enoch, in these texts, becomes the person God sends to deliver judgment against these rebellious angels. He travels through the heavens. He sees the places where storms are born. He witnesses the storehouses of snow and hail. He stands before the throne of God itself. But here is where the story takes its most dramatic turn. In the later mystical tradition, the rabbis said Enoch did not just visit heaven, he stayed. And he did not stay as a man. He was changed into something far greater than any angel had ever been. He became Metatron, the Prince of the Countenance, the one who sits on a throne beside God's own throne. And that claim was so bold, so daring, that it sparked arguments among Jewish scholars that lasted for centuries. Subscribe now if you want to follow this story all the way to the end, because what comes next goes deeper than most people ever dare to explore. The name Enoch itself carries meaning. In Hebrew, it connects to a root word that means to dedicate or to initiate. Enoch was the dedicated one, the initiated one, the man set apart for something no other human had experienced before. And the ancient world took this very seriously. Enoch appears in traditions far beyond just Judaism. Early Christian writers quoted the Book of Enoch. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church includes 1st Enoch in its biblical canon to this day. Even the New Testament book of Jude directly quotes from Enoch's prophecy. Jude 1:14 says Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about the coming judgment. That means the New Testament itself acknowledges Enoch as a prophet. This is not a fringe figure. This is someone the biblical tradition treats with enormous respect. And yet most modern churches barely mention him. Why? That question alone should make you curious enough to stay with this story. Chapter 2. 3 books and 3 worlds. The story of Enoch does not live in one single text. It lives in 3. And understanding the difference between these 3 books is essential if you want to grasp what the ancient mystics were really saying. The first book, known simply as 1st Enoch or the Ethiopic Book of Enoch, is the oldest. Scholars date its earliest sections to around the 3rd century before Christ. This text is massive. It runs over 100 chapters and covers everything from the fall of the Watchers to the final judgment of the world. It describes Enoch's journeys through the cosmos. He sees the foundations of the earth. He visits the prison where fallen angels are held in chains of darkness. He stands at the edge of creation and looks into the abyss. First, Enoch is a book about cosmic order and cosmic rebellion. It answers the question of why evil exists in the world by pointing to angelic beings who broke their boundaries and corrupted humanity. 2nd Enoch, also called the Slavonic Book of Enoch, comes from a different time and place. Most scholars believe it was written in the 1st century around the time of Jesus, though some argue for an earlier date. This text takes Enoch on a guided tour through the 7 heavens. Each heaven has its own rulers, its own landscapes, and its own secrets. In the 1st heaven, Enoch sees the storehouses of weather. In the 2nd, he sees angels who have fallen from grace, weeping in darkness. The 3rd heaven contains both paradise and a place of punishment. The 4th heaven holds the movements of the sun and moon. The 5th holds the Watchers who mourn their fallen brothers. The 6th holds archangels who govern the cycles of nature. And in the 7th heaven, Enoch finally stands before God. 2nd Enoch is a travel guide to the invisible world. It maps out the architecture of reality beyond what human eyes can see. But it is third Enoch that changes everything. Third Enoch is the text that matters most for our story. Scholars call it Sefer Hekalot, which means the Book of the Palaces. It was likely written down between the 5th and 6th centuries after Christ, though the traditions it preserves are much older. And this is where the transformation of Enoch into Metatron is described in its fullest and most dramatic detail. But third Enoch does not begin with Enoch at all. It begins with a rabbi, a man named Rabbi Ishmael. And his journey into the heavenly palaces is one of the most intense spiritual experiences ever recorded in Jewish literature. If you've been enjoying this deep dive into Scripture's hidden layers, hit that like button right now and share this with someone who loves biblical mysteries. The next chapter will take us directly into the heavenly throne room through the eyes of Rabbi Ishmael, and what he finds there will challenge everything you thought you knew about how heaven works. Third Enoch belongs to a tradition scholars call Merkaba mysticism, or sometimes Hekalot literature. Merkaba comes from the Hebrew word for chariot, and it refers to the vision described by the prophet Ezekiel. In Ezekiel chapter 1, the prophet sees a great storm cloud, flashing fire, and 4 living creatures carrying what appears to be a throne above them. This vision became the foundation of an entire mystical movement. The rabbis who practiced Merkaba mysticism believed that a person could, through intense prayer, fasting, and meditation, ascend through the layers of heaven, just as Enoch and Ezekiel had done. But the journey was considered extremely dangerous. There are stories of rabbis who attempted the ascent and lost their minds. Others are said to have died. The heavenly palaces were guarded by fearsome angels who would test anyone trying to pass through. Only the pure in heart and strong in faith could survive the journey. This is the world third Enoch opens up for us. A world of danger, glory, and transformation beyond anything we experience in daily life. Chapter 3. Rabbi Ishmael enters the throne room. Third Enoch opens with Rabbi Ishmael speaking in the first person. He tells us he ascended to the heights. He says he went up to behold the vision of the Merkaba, the divine chariot. This was not a dream. The text presents it as a real experience. Rabbi Ishmael prepared himself through prayer and devotion. He passed through gate after gate, palace after palace, each one more terrifying than the last. And at the 7th and final palace, he encountered Metatron himself. The angel who was once a man named Enoch now stood before the rabbi in full heavenly glory. Metatron reached out and received Rabbi Ishmael. He guided him, protected him, and then Metatron began to tell his story. Metatron says to Rabbi Ishmael that he was once Enoch, the son of Jared. When the generation of the flood became corrupt and turned to evil, God removed Enoch from the earth. The text is clear about this. God did not take Enoch because Enoch was going to die. God took Enoch because humanity had become wicked, and Enoch was the one righteous witness who could testify against them. This adds a layer to the Genesis account that most readers miss. Enoch's removal was not just a reward for his goodness, it was an act of divine strategy. God needed a witness, someone who had walked among the corrupt generation and remained pure. Someone who could stand before the heavenly court and say, "I was there. I saw what they did, and I did not join them." Comment below if you have ever heard this explanation of why Enoch was taken. Most Bible teachers never mention it, but it is right there in the text of 3rd Enoch, and it changes the whole meaning of the story. When Enoch arrived in heaven, the transformation began immediately. The text describes it in physical terms that are almost overwhelming. God expanded Enoch's body until it matched the length and width of the world. That is what the text says. His human frame was stretched and reshaped to cosmic proportions. Then God gave him wings. 36 pairs of wings, each pair large enough to cover the entire world. And God gave him eyes. 365,000 eyes, each one shining like the sun at midday. This is not poetry meant to be taken loosely. The mystics believed these descriptions carried real spiritual meaning. The wings represent authority and freedom of movement across all dimensions of reality. The eyes represent complete knowledge and awareness. Nothing in all of creation could be hidden from Metatron. He could see every corner of every heaven and every secret of every heart. But the transformation did not stop with physical change. God gave Enoch a new name. He called him Metatron. The origin of this name is one of the great debates in scholarship. Some scholars connect it to the Latin word metator, meaning a guide or a measurer. Others link it to the Greek word metathronon, meaning the one beside the throne. Still others see it as a uniquely angelic name with no earthly origin at all. Whatever its source, the name carried supreme authority. God declared Metatron to be a prince over all the princes of heaven. He was given a throne of his own, placed at the entrance of the seventh palace, the highest heaven. A crown was placed on his head. And here is the detail that caused the most controversy in Jewish history. God called Metatron by a title that shook the foundations of angelic order. He called him the Lesser Yahweh. That title appears in the text of 3rd Enoch, and it sparked a theological earthquake. How could any being, even an angel, carry a form of God's own sacred name? This question divided rabbis for generations. Some accepted it as a sign of Metatron's supreme delegated authority. Others saw it as dangerously close to the sin of giving God's glory to a created being. And that debate, which we will explore more deeply later, reveals something important about the limits of how far mystical thinking could go, even within the Jewish tradition. The transformation of Enoch into Metatron was not quiet. It was not subtle. The other angels noticed, and not all of them were pleased. The text describes 3 angels in particular who objected. Their names were Uzzah, Azza, and Azael. These were angels associated with the Watchers, the same rebellious beings described in 1st Enoch. They came before God and challenged the decision. They asked why a human being, born of a woman, formed from dust, should be elevated above the angels. They reminded God that humanity had proven itself corrupt during the flood. Why should one of them now sit on a throne in heaven? God's response is recorded in the text. He defended his choice of Enoch. He said Enoch was more righteous than all of them, that his merit surpassed the merit of every angel in the heavenly court. This scene is powerful because it shows that even in heaven, according to the mystics, there is tension, there is debate, there is pushback against divine decisions. And God's answer makes clear that righteousness, not origin, determines a being's worth. If that idea does not challenge your assumptions, nothing will. Chapter 4. The 70 Names of Power. Metatron's authority was not just a title. It was embedded in his very identity through a system of names that the ancient world considered deeply powerful. The text of 3rd Enoch tells us that Metatron was given 70 names. Each name corresponds to one of the 70 languages that the rabbis believed existed in the world. This was not random. In ancient Jewish thought, language was not just a tool for communication. Language was the medium of creation itself. God spoke the world into existence. Words carry power. Names carry destiny. To hold 70 names meant Metatron could operate in every dimension of human experience and divine authority. He was not limited to one realm or one function. He carried within himself the keys to every door in creation. Some of these names are recorded in 3rd Enoch. They sound strange to modern ears. Yephaphia, Margiael, Sagnasagal, Zevudiel. Each one represents a specific aspect of Metatron's role. Some names connect to his function as the heavenly scribe who records every deed of every person. Others connect to his role as the guide for souls ascending through the heavens. Still others relate to his authority over the natural world, the movements of the stars, and the cycles of time. The system of 70 names tells us something important about how the mystics understood power. Power was not brute force. Power was knowledge. Power was presence in every dimension. Power was the ability to speak in the language that each part of creation understands. Metatron held all of these abilities because he held all of these names. But the most significant name was the one that caused the greatest controversy. When God called Metatron the Lesser Yahweh, he was essentially saying that Metatron carried a portion of the divine name itself. In Jewish tradition, the name of God, the four-letter name represented by the Hebrew letters Yod, He, Vav, He, is considered so sacred that it is never spoken aloud. To give any portion of that name to another being was an extraordinary act. The mystics interpreted this as meaning that when Metatron spoke, it was as if God himself was speaking through a representative. When Metatron issued a command, it carried the full weight of divine authority. This did not make Metatron equal to God. The mystics were very careful about that distinction. Metatron was a servant with delegated power, a prince acting on behalf of the king. But his level of authority was so high that no other angel could override his decisions. Share this with someone who loves deep biblical study, because this level of detail about the angelic world is something most people never encounter. There is another layer to Metatron's authority that 3rd Enoch describes in fascinating detail. God placed the letters of creation on Metatron's crown. These are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the same letters the mystics believed God used to speak the universe into being. The book of Genesis says God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Those words, in Hebrew, are made of specific letters, and those letters, according to the tradition, contain creative power. By placing these letters on Metatron's crown, God was granting him access to the very tools of creation, not to create on his own, but to understand and govern what had been made. This idea connects to a much larger theme in Jewish mysticism. The physical world is not separate from the spiritual world. They are connected through language, through letters, through the spoken word of God. And Metatron, once a man who walked the earth, now stood at the intersection of these two realities. He could see both worlds. He could move between them. He had become the bridge. The text also tells us that Metatron was appointed as a witness. His primary role in the heavenly court was to testify. He testified against the generation of the flood. He testified about the deeds of human beings, both good and evil. He kept records that no human hand could alter or destroy. In a sense, Metatron became the living memory of God's interaction with humanity. Every prayer, every sin, every act of kindness, every moment of cruelty was recorded in his books. This idea of a heavenly scribe appears in many cultures and traditions. But in 3rd Enoch, the scribe is not a distant bureaucrat. The scribe is someone who was once human, someone who knew what it felt like to walk on earth, to struggle with temptation, to choose goodness when everyone around him chose corruption. That personal experience made Metatron uniquely qualified for his role. He could judge with understanding because he had lived the human experience himself. And yet the full scope of Metatron's power is still not fully revealed. The next chapter will show us the vast hierarchy of angels over which he rules, and the structure of heavenly government is far more complex than most people ever imagined. Chapter 5. The Government of Heaven. The heavens, according to 3rd Enoch, are not a quiet garden where souls rest in peace. The heavens are a kingdom, and like any kingdom, they have a government. That government runs on a strict hierarchy of angels, each with specific duties, specific territories, and specific levels of authority. Metatron stands at the very top of this structure, second only to God himself. And the layers beneath him are more detailed and organized than most people could ever imagine. The text names dozens of angelic princes. Each one rules over a specific domain. There are princes who govern nations on earth. There are princes who control the weather. There are princes set over the movement of the sun, the cycles of the moon, and the turning of the stars. Nothing in the natural world happens without angelic oversight. Rain does not fall by accident. Thunder does not rumble without permission. The wind does not blow unless an angel directs it. This idea may sound strange to modern ears. We live in a world that explains weather through science and natural law. But the mystics were not denying natural processes. They were saying something deeper. They were saying that behind every natural process, there is intelligence, there is purpose, there is a being who carries out the will of God in that specific area. The angel of rain does not act on its own desire, it acts on God's command. The angel of thunder does not create noise for its own entertainment. It releases sound as part of a divine orchestration that governs the entire cosmos. This view of reality is sometimes called the Great Chain of Being. Every level of existence is connected to the level above it and the level below it. Angels connect God's will to the physical world. They are the mechanism through which divine intention becomes earthly reality. 3rd Enoch gives us the names of several of these angelic rulers. Barachiel is the prince of lightning. Raamiel is the prince of thunder. Baradiel rules over hail. Galgaliel governs the sphere of the sun. Cockbiel holds authority over the stars. Rahatiel manages the constellations. Sahakiel is the prince of the sky itself. Each name carries meaning in Hebrew, often combining a description of the angel's function with the suffix El, which means God. Their very names declare that they serve God in their particular domain. The system is elegant and comprehensive. Every corner of creation has a guardian. Every force of nature has a governor. And over all of them stands Metatron, coordinating the entire operation like the chief minister of an infinite kingdom. But the hierarchy does not only involve natural forces. There are also angels assigned to spiritual functions. Suriel is called the Prince of the Divine Presence. Jehoel is associated with mediating between God and humanity. Rikbiel governs the wheels of the divine chariot, the Merkaba itself. Hayil commands the holy living creatures that carry God's throne. Kerubiel oversees the cherubim. These are not minor roles. These angels stand in the direct presence of God and manage the most sacred elements of the heavenly reality. The text describes their power in terms that are difficult for the human mind to process. Their voices shake the foundations of heaven. Their movements create earthquakes in the spiritual realm. When they sing, the sound reverberates through all 7 heavens. If you want to hear more about these incredible beings and how they operate in the hidden structure of reality, subscribe now and make sure you do not miss a single part of this series. Because the layers of heaven are about to unfold in ways that will leave you speechless. The relationship between these angels is not casual. 3rd Enoch describes a strict protocol of honor and deference. When a higher-ranking angel passes by, lower angels must stand and bow. There are specific songs and declarations that angels make in the presence of their superiors. The text describes moments where thousands of angels fall on their faces before a single prince of higher rank. This is not servile fear. It is recognition of divine order. Each angel knows its place because each angel knows the source of its authority. No angel claims power for itself. All power flows from God through Metatron and down through the ranks. The system works because every being in it acknowledges where the power comes from. And this principle, the mystics believed, was meant to teach human beings something crucial. Humility is not weakness. Humility is alignment with the structure of reality itself. When you recognize that all good things come from a source greater than yourself, you are not diminished. You are positioned correctly within the order of creation. Chapter 6. Princes of the Nations. One of the most fascinating and controversial aspects of the angelic hierarchy in 3rd Enoch is the idea that every nation on earth has an angelic prince assigned to it. This concept does not originate in 3rd Enoch alone. It appears in the book of Daniel, where the angel speaking to Daniel mentions the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece as spiritual beings who resist and compete with the angelic forces serving Israel. Daniel 10:13 describes a battle between angels that lasted 21 days. The angel sent to Daniel was held up by the prince of the kingdom of Persia until Michael, the great prince who watches over Israel, came to help. This passage reveals something that most casual readers of the Bible miss entirely. There is a political structure in the heavens that mirrors the political structure on earth. Nations are not just collections of people governed by human rulers. Nations have spiritual patrons, and those patrons sometimes come into conflict with one another. 3rd Enoch expands on this idea significantly. It describes 72 angelic princes, one for each of the 72 nations that the rabbis counted based on the Table of Nations in Genesis chapter 10. These princes represent their nations before the heavenly court. They advocate for their people. They carry the prayers and deeds of their nation up to the throne of judgment. But they are also held accountable. When a nation falls into wickedness, its angelic prince bears a share of the blame, and this creates a picture of heaven that is far more dynamic and complex than most people imagine. Heaven is not static. It is a place of ongoing activity, negotiation, and even conflict. Angels argue their cases. They present evidence. They defend and accuse. And Metatron, sitting on his throne at the entrance of the 7th palace, oversees all of these proceedings. Like this video if this is blowing your mind, because we are about to go even deeper. The idea of angelic princes over nations raises a profound question. If the nations of the earth have spiritual rulers, then the events of human history are not purely the result of human decisions. There is a hidden dimension to every war, every alliance, every rise and fall of empires. The mystics believed that what happens on earth reflects what happens in heaven. When nations go to war, their angelic princes are also in conflict. When peace comes to the earth, it means peace has been established in the heavenly realm first. This is a radical idea. It suggests that prayer is not just a personal exercise. Prayer is participation in a cosmic struggle. When you pray for peace, you are not just expressing a wish. You are adding your voice to the side of the angelic forces who advocate for peace in the heavenly court. The Prince of Israel holds a unique position in this system. Michael, the great archangel, is described as the guardian of the Jewish people. But Metatron's role is even higher than Michael's. Metatron does not represent one nation. He represents the entire system. He is the administrator of all the angelic princes, the one who coordinates their activities and ensures that God's will is carried out across all nations. This puts Metatron in a position that no other angel occupies. He is both above the national princes and connected to every one of them. He sees the full picture. He understands how the fate of one nation affects all the others. He carries the weight of the whole world on his shoulders, just as Enoch once carried the burden of being the only righteous man in a corrupt generation. There is a story in the Talmud that illustrates the tension this created. A rabbi named Elisha ben Avuya, also known as Acha, which means the other one, reportedly ascended to the heavenly realm and saw Metatron sitting on a throne. Because all other angels stand in the presence of God, Elisha mistakenly concluded that there must be two divine powers in heaven. This error, according to the Talmud, led to his downfall and his rejection of traditional faith. The story serves as a warning. Metatron's elevated status was real, but misunderstanding it could lead to heresy. The mystics used this story to draw a very clear line. Metatron is mighty. Metatron carries God's name, but Metatron is not God. The distinction between the Creator and the greatest of all created beings must never be erased. This tension between exalting Metatron and maintaining strict monotheism runs through all of 3rd Enoch and all of Merkaba mysticism. It is one of the reasons this tradition was considered dangerous and was restricted to only the most mature and learned scholars. Chapter 7. The Architecture of 7 Heavens. The heavens in Jewish mysticism are not a single place. They are a series of realms stacked one above another, each more glorious and more dangerous than the one before it. 2nd Enoch provides the clearest map of this architecture, and 3rd Enoch fills in the details of the highest levels. Together, these texts describe 7 distinct heavens, each with its own landscape, its own inhabitants, and its own purpose. Understanding this structure is essential for understanding the journey of the soul and the meaning of Metatron's position at the very top. The first heaven is called Shamayim. This is the heaven closest to the earth. It is the realm where weather is governed. The storehouses of snow, rain, dew, and wind are located here. Angels assigned to natural phenomena carry out their duties in this lowest heaven. It is also the place where the stars are set in their courses. The angels who govern the movement of the stars live and work here, following precise instructions from the higher heavens. The first heaven is functional. It is the engine room of the visible cosmos. Everything you see when you look up at the sky is managed from this level. The second heaven is called Rakia. This is a darker place. 2nd Enoch describes it as the heaven where fallen angels are held in chains, awaiting their final judgment. These are the watchers who rebelled by leaving their proper place and coming down to earth to corrupt humanity. They hang in darkness, weeping and mourning. The atmosphere of the second heaven is one of sorrow and regret. It serves as a reminder that rebellion against God's order carries consequences that last far beyond the moment of the act itself. The third heaven is called Shehakim. This heaven contains two regions that seem contradictory. On one side, there is paradise, gardens of extraordinary beauty, trees that bear fruit beyond description, rivers of milk and honey. This is the reward prepared for the righteous. On the other side of the third heaven, there is a place of punishment, fire and ice, darkness and torment. The third heaven holds both the best and the worst of what awaits the human soul after death. This duality is not accidental. The mystics placed paradise and punishment in the same heaven to make a point. The difference between reward and suffering is not about geography, it is about character. The same reality that brings joy to the righteous brings agony to the wicked. The fourth heaven is called Zebul. Here the heavenly Jerusalem is located. The great temple, the altar, and the archangel Michael serving as the high priest before God. This heaven mirrors the earthly Jerusalem and the earthly temple, but in a perfected form. Everything that was broken or incomplete in the earthly version exists in its fullness in the fourth heaven. The fifth heaven is called Maon. This is the dwelling place of certain companies of angels who sing praises to God during the night, remaining silent during the day so that the prayers of Israel can be heard. The sixth heaven is called Markon. This is the heaven where the great archives are kept. The records of every human deed, the books of life and death, and the scrolls of destiny are all stored here. Angels of record-keeping manage these archives with perfect precision. And then there is the seventh heaven, Araboth, the highest of all. This is where God's throne of glory stands. This is where the holy living creatures, the seraphim, the ophanim, and the cherubim all gather in ceaseless worship. The glory of this place is so intense that the text says no created being can look upon it directly without being transformed. The fire that surrounds the throne is not destructive fire. It is the fire of pure divine presence, the fire of holiness itself. And it is here, at the entrance to this seventh heaven, that Metatron sits on his throne. He guards the gate to the highest reality. He determines who may enter and who must turn back. He is the final checkpoint between creation and creator, and his judgment is absolute. If this structure of heaven is new to you, you are not alone. Most religious education never goes this deep, but the ancient mystics mapped these realms with precision because they believed the journey to God required a map. And that map continues in the next chapter, where we will see another mortal who dared to ascend through these heavens. His name was Moses, and his encounter with Metatron changed everything. Chapter 8: Moses among the angels. The story of Moses ascending Mount Sinai to receive the Torah is one of the most famous events in the Bible. Exodus tells us Moses went up into the cloud that covered the mountain and stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights. But the mystical tradition says something much more dramatic happened during those 40 days. The rabbis believed that Moses did not simply climb a mountain, he ascended through the heavens themselves. The cloud that covered Sinai was not an ordinary cloud. It was the boundary between the physical world and the spiritual realm. And when Moses stepped into that cloud, He began a journey through the same heavenly palaces that Enoch had traveled before him. 3rd Enoch and related texts describe Moses encountering angels at every level of his ascent, and those encounters were not friendly. The angels did not want a human being in their territory. They saw Moses as an intruder. The Talmud records a tradition that the angels protested to God. They said the Torah was too holy to be given to a mortal born of flesh and blood. The Torah belonged in heaven. It should stay with the angels. Moses, according to this tradition, had to defend humanity's right to receive God's word. He argued that the Torah speaks of human experiences. It says, "Honor your father and mother." Angels do not have parents. It says, "Do not steal." Angels do not own property. It says, "Do not commit adultery." Angels do not marry. The Torah was written for beings who face temptation, who struggle with weakness, who must choose between good and evil every single day. That argument belongs to creatures who live in the flesh, not to beings of fire who have never known hunger, loss, or doubt. God accepted Moses' argument, and the angels, though they had resisted, stepped aside. But the journey still required a guide, and that guide was Metatron, the same being who had once been Enoch, who had once walked the earth as a man, now led Moses through the palaces of heaven. Metatron understood what Moses was experiencing because Metatron had experienced it himself. He knew the terror of standing before angelic beings of immeasurable size and power. He knew the disorientation of passing from one heaven to the next. He knew the overwhelming glory of approaching the throne. Metatron was the perfect guide precisely because he had once been human. During his ascent, Moses is described as fasting completely, no food, no water, for 40 days and nights. The text says, Moses subsisted on the radiance of the divine presence. The glory of God itself became his sustenance. This detail is not just a miracle story, it is a teaching about transformation. As Moses moved higher through the heavens, his body was gradually changing. He was becoming less dependent on physical sustenance and more attuned to spiritual reality. By the time he reached the 7th heaven, Moses was operating in a state of being that ordinary humans cannot achieve. He was still mortal. He would return to earth. But during those 40 days, he existed at the boundary between human and divine. The angels Moses encountered were not small or gentle beings. 3rd Enoch describes angels of enormous size. Some have heights that would take 500 years to walk from bottom to top. Others have wings that span from one end of heaven to the other. Their faces burn with fire. Their voices shake the foundations of the heavens when they speak. Some have thousands of eyes covering their entire bodies, each eye blazing like the sun. These descriptions are meant to convey something specific. The heavenly realm operates on a completely different scale than the physical world. Size, in the mystic tradition, represents spiritual magnitude. An angel of great size is an angel of great power and great responsibility. The immensity of these beings reflects the immensity of the God they serve. Moses encountered a specific angel whose description stands out among all others. Sandalphon is described as an angel so tall that it would take a journey of 500 years to travel from his feet to his head. He stands behind the divine chariot and weaves crowns for God from the prayers of Israel. Every prayer spoken by a faithful heart rises through the heavens and reaches Sandalphon. He takes those prayers and fashions them into a crown that he places on God's head. This is one of the most beautiful images in all of mystical literature. It means your prayers are not lost. They are not empty words spoken into the air. They are gathered by an angel of incomprehensible size and woven into something beautiful enough to adorn the head of the creator of the universe. If that does not change how you think about prayer, nothing will. Moses returned from the heavens with the Torah, and according to the tradition, his face shone so brightly that the people of Israel could not look at him. Exodus 34:30 tells us this directly. The glow on his face was the residue of the divine presence. He had been in the seventh heaven. He had stood near the throne of God. And that encounter left a physical mark on him that everyone could see. The mystics saw this as proof of their central belief. Contact with the divine realm transforms a person. It changes you from the inside out. It leaves marks on you that the world can see. Enoch was transformed completely and permanently. Moses was transformed temporarily but visibly. And the path that both of them traveled is the same path that the Merkaba mystics believed could be traveled by anyone with enough devotion, purity, and courage. That path leads through the divine chariot itself. And the Merkaba, God's chariot, is the subject of our next chapter. Chapter 9. The Merkaba, God's chariot. The Merkaba is the most sacred and most dangerous subject in all of Jewish mysticism. The word itself comes from the Hebrew root meaning to ride, and refers to the divine chariot that carries the throne of God. The vision originates in the first chapter of the book of Ezekiel. The prophet was standing by the river Chebar in Babylon when the heavens opened and he saw visions of God. What he described next is one of the most complex and mysterious passages in all of Scripture. Ezekiel saw a great storm cloud coming from the north. Inside the cloud was fire, and inside the fire were 4 living creatures. Each creature had 4 faces: the face of a man, the face of a lion, the face of an ox, and the face of an eagle. Each had 4 wings. Their legs were straight. Their feet gleamed like burnished bronze, and beside each creature was a wheel. The wheels were enormous. They sparkled like topaz, and each wheel contained another wheel inside it, set at right angles, so the whole structure could move in any direction without turning. The rims of the wheels were covered with eyes. Above the heads of the living creatures was a surface that looked like crystal. And above that surface was something that looked like a throne made of blue sapphire. And on that throne sat a figure that glowed like fire and was surrounded by a rainbow. That is the Merkaba, the divine chariot. And for the ancient Jewish mystics, it was not just a vision. It was a revelation of the actual structure of God's mobile throne. God does not sit in one place, according to this tradition. God moves. God travels through creation on this living, breathing chariot made of angels and fire and wheels and light. The Merkaba is not a machine. It is a living system. Every part of it has intelligence and will. The 4 living creatures, called Hayot in Hebrew, are the highest order of angels in this structure. They carry the very throne of God on their backs. The wheels, called Ophanim, move in perfect coordination with the Hayot, and the whole assembly moves according to the Spirit, wherever the Spirit wishes to go. The rabbis who practiced Merkaba mysticism believed that through intense preparation, a person could ascend through the 7 heavens and behold this chariot with their own spiritual eyes. But the practice was surrounded by extreme caution. The Mishnah, one of the earliest compilations of Jewish law, states that the Merkaba may not be expounded before even one person unless they are wise and understand on their own. This was considered the most restricted knowledge in all of Judaism. Students could study Torah openly. They could discuss law and ethics in public. But the Merkaba was different. It was considered so powerful and so dangerous that even speaking about it carelessly could cause spiritual harm, and attempting the ascent without proper preparation could result in madness or death. The connection between the Merkaba and Metatron is direct and essential. Metatron is described as the rider or the guardian of the chariot in some texts. He sits on a throne at the entrance to the place where the Merkaba operates. He is the intermediary between the human soul attempting to ascend and the overwhelming glory of God seated on the chariot throne. Without Metatron's guidance, no soul could navigate the approach to the Merkaba safely. The fire alone would consume an unprepared visitor. The sound of the Hayot's wings would shatter a mind that was not fortified by prayer and purity. Metatron's role as the former human being who now serves as heaven's highest prince makes him the ideal bridge between the two worlds. 3rd Enoch describes the chariots of God in extraordinary detail. There are multiple chariots, each representing a different aspect of divine power. There is the chariot of cloud and the chariot of wind. There is the chariot of storm and the chariot of hail. There is a chariot of fire and a chariot of fog. There is the chariot of the swift cherub and the chariot of the holy creatures. Each one serves a specific function in God's interaction with creation. When God comes in judgment, the chariot of storm appears. When God comes in mercy, the chariot of cloud descends. The variety of chariots tells us that God's presence is not one-dimensional. God meets the world in many forms, through many vehicles, each suited to the occasion and the need. Comment below which chariot description fascinates you the most. This kind of detail about the divine presence is rarely discussed outside of academic circles, and you deserve to know about it. The Merkaba was also understood as a model of the universe itself. Just as the chariot has layers and levels, the universe has layers and levels. Just as the chariot moves in all directions without turning, the universe operates through forces that are interconnected and responsive to the will of God. The mystics saw the Merkaba not just as a vehicle, but as a map of everything that exists. To understand the chariot was to understand the structure of reality. To approach the chariot was to approach the deepest truth about existence. And to behold the one seated on the throne above the chariot was to experience the ultimate encounter that any created being could ever have. That encounter changes everything. And in the next chapter, we will see what happens when the throne is revealed in all its glory and the heavenly court assembles for judgment.